The Auto Hunter spotlight for today shines on what was, in many ways, the end of a great automotive story. A 1980 MG MGB Limited Edition. This particular car, being offered by a dealer in Gladstone, Oregon, stands as one of the final symbols of the classic British sports car era. The auction will conclude on Tuesday, October 21, 2025, at 12 p.m. PDT. But for me, the story of this car goes much deeper than any auction date or price tag. I have always had a deep, almost sentimental connection with the MGB. It represents a time and spirit that will never return. A blend of simplicity, charm, and driver engagement that defined an entire generation of enthusiasts. To me, the MGB was the last true British sports car, the closing chapter of a proud tradition that included icons like the Triumph TR Series, the Austin Healey 3000, and the Jaguar E-Type. The only real exception to that statement might be Morgan, a company that stubbornly refused to change and thus managed to survive in its own timeless bubble. But for the rest of British motoring, the MGB was the final heartbeat before the era of modernity took over and things became, well, different. The MGB was the first sports car I ever drove. I remember it vividly because it wasn't just another car to me. It was a revelation. In fact, the first one I ever drove was brand new. The year was 1980, and I was only 13 years old. I shouldn't have been anywhere near the driver's seat, but life sometimes hands you moments that define everything that comes after. That day, behind the wheel of a gleaming new MGB, I felt what real driving was. To this day, I believe I was probably the youngest automotive journalist ever to have test-driven a new 1980 MGB when it was still hot off the production line. That memory is burned into my mind with a clarity few experiences can match. The car was unlike anything else I had ever encountered. Most of the vehicles I had been around were large, softly sprung, and more focused on comfort than communication. The MGB, by contrast, was alive. It felt as if the steering wheel was wired directly into the front tires. The rack and pinion setup transmitted every nuance of the road. I remember the mechanical sound of the little four-cylinder engine. Not powerful, but eager, crisp, and full of character. The way the exhaust note rasped as I pressed the throttle and the sensation of wind rushing through the open cabin with the top down sealed my fate as a sports car devotee for life. To me, the MGB Limited Edition was always the best version of the late model cars, especially those with the rubber bumpers. Those bumpers had been controversial from the start, introduced to comply with U.S. safety regulations in 1974. They raised the ride height, added weight, and dulled the once pure design lines. But somehow, the limited edition cars of 1980 made the look work. The black paint, silver striping, and polished alloy wheels gave the car a sense of cohesion and modernity. It was as though MG had finally figured out how to make the rubber bumper design look intentional rather than compromised. The limited edition was conceived as a final effort by British Leyland's marketing department and its American advertising agency to reinvigorate U.S. sales and end the model's run on a high note. The original plan was modest. Just 500 cars, all for the U.S. market, painted in a uniform black finish with silver decals, special badges, a front air dam, and distinctive cast alloy wheels. But something about the car resonated. Maybe it was nostalgia, maybe it was the realization that this was the last chance to buy a new MG. Whatever the reason, demand surged, and the run expanded far beyond the original 500. In the end, over 6,600 examples of the limited edition were shipped to the U.S. It was a bittersweet success, because even this surge of interest couldn't save MG. By 1980, the Abingdon factory, MG's spiritual home, was closing its doors. British Leyland was in turmoil, struggling with labor issues, quality control problems, and dwindling sales. The MGB Limited Edition was the swan song, a farewell performance for one of the most storied names in motoring history. When production ended in October 1980, an era truly came to a close. MG had introduced the idea of the affordable sports car to America in the post-war years, and now, that legacy was bowing out quietly in a sea of black paint and silver pinstripes. The example featured in today's spotlight is powered by the familiar 1.8-liter OHV inline-four engine, paired with a 4-speed synchromesh manual gearbox and electronic overdrive. It has been refinished in black cherry metallic, a color that looks black until the light hits it just right, revealing a deep, elegant hue beneath the surface. It's a subtle but inspired choice that gives the car an understated individuality while remaining true to its heritage. The black convertible top and black vinyl interior complement the exterior perfectly, maintaining the car's period-correct aesthetic while adding just a touch of modern refinement. According to the seller, this car underwent a complete restoration, and from the photos, it certainly looks the part. The paintwork appears deep and glossy, with sharp reflections and consistent panel gaps, something not every MGB can claim. It's clear that whoever oversaw the restoration understood what makes an MGB special. The car's simplicity is its strength, and restoring one correctly means resisting the urge to improve it too much. This one appears to strike that balance well. The interior is similarly faithful to the original design. The seats are upholstered in the correct material, the carpets and trim pieces look authentic, and even the steering wheel is right for the model year. The only deviation is a modern aftermarket radio, a practical concession to contemporary convenience. The rest of the cabin is pure MGB, minimalist, functional, and designed around the driver. Sitting in that low, narrow cockpit with the three-spoke wheel in your hands is an experience that connects you to the road in a way few modern cars can replicate. It's worth remembering that the MGB, despite its modest price, was a well-built car by the standards of its time. The body panels were well-aligned, the materials chosen with care, and the craftsmanship, especially from the Abingdon workers, reflected pride and tradition. Even toward the end, when the company's finances were dire and the writing was on the wall, the people who assembled these cars did so with passion. There's something touching about that, knowing that the final examples were built not just as products, but as tributes to a beloved mark. Under the hood, this MGB retains its original 1.8-liter engine, but benefits from a Weber twin-sync 38 carburetor, a tasteful upgrade over the original Stromberg setup. This change doesn't transform the car into a speed demon, but it does sharpen throttle response and likely adds a few extra horsepower. The engine bay itself appears clean and well-detailed, with the kind of care that suggests it wasn't just restored for looks but also for drivability. The gearbox, a 4-speed manual with electronic overdrive, is one of the best features of these later MGBs. The overdrive allows the car to cruise comfortably at highway speeds without the engine screaming near redline. At 70 miles per hour, the tachometer settles down, the engine relaxes, and the MGB becomes a surprisingly capable long-distance companion. It's easy to forget that these cars were once daily drivers, used for everything from commuting to weekend trips through the countryside. For me, driving an MGB, especially a late-model limited edition like this one, is like stepping back into a simpler time. You feel every vibration, hear every mechanical sound, and engage with every aspect of the car's behavior. There are no electronic aids, no digital distractions. You become part of the machine, and the road becomes a partner in the experience. That's what made me fall in love with sports cars in the first place, and it's what continues to draw enthusiasts to cars like this even decades later. Looking back, it's amazing how much the MGB accomplished during its long production run. Introduced in 1962, it was one of the first sports cars to feature a monocoque, unitary body, which provided better rigidity and lighter weight than the traditional body-on-frame construction. It was a practical car too, reliable, affordable, and easy to maintain. MG sold more than 500,000 MGBs over its lifetime, a testament to the car's enduring appeal. The limited edition represented both progress and nostalgia, an attempt to modernize a design that had, by 1980, been on the market for nearly 2 decades. It was the same basic car underneath, but its presentation was fresh enough to give it a sense of occasion. The silver striping along the sides, the limited edition badges, and the front spoiler gave it a purposeful stance. The alloy wheels, made by Revo, were unique to the model and instantly recognizable. Together, these elements created a car that looked special without being garish. In the sunlight, the black paint accentuated the MGB's simple, timeless lines. It's a shape that doesn't rely on excessive curves or flamboyant details. Instead, it's all about proportion: the long hood, the short rear deck, and the low seating position that puts you almost at axle height. When you see one in person, especially in pristine condition, you're reminded that beauty in car design often comes from restraint. When you drive it, you understand why the MGB earned its reputation. It's not fast by modern standards, 95 horsepower in stock form, but it's light, nimble, and wonderfully communicative. The gearbox has that mechanical precision that rewards deliberate shifts. The steering is unassisted but perfectly weighted. And the suspension, while soft by sports car standards, communicates everything happening beneath the tires. Every input has a corresponding reaction, and every reaction tells you something about the road. Even now, nearly half a century after production ended, an MGB can still hold its own as a pure driver's car. It's not about performance numbers. It's about engagement. The MGB delivers that in abundance. You don't need to go fast to have fun. 50 miles per hour feels like 90, and every corner becomes an event. This particular 1980 limited edition, restored and subtly color-shifted to black cherry metallic, is more than just a collector piece. It's a rolling piece of history, a reminder of where sports cars came from. In a world filled with touchscreens and turbochargers, the simplicity of an MGB feels almost radical. The smell of the interior, the click of the switchgear, the faint whir of the overdrive engaging. These are sensory details that modern cars simply can't replicate. When I think back to that day in 1980, a 13-year-old kid sitting behind the wheel of a new MGB, heart pounding with excitement, I realize how much that moment shaped me. It wasn't just a drive. It was an awakening. I felt connected to the road, to the machine, and to something larger, the idea that cars could be more than transportation. They could be art, freedom, emotion. The MGB taught me that. Today, as I look at this 1980 limited edition, I see more than just a collectible. I see the final chapter of a story that began in the 1920s, when MG first started building sporty versions of humble Morris cars. I see decades of innovation, racing triumphs, and everyday joy condensed into one small, black roadster. And I see the spirit of British motoring. Optimistic, passionate, a little flawed but always full of character. For anyone who wants to experience that spirit firsthand, this car offers that opportunity. It's not just about owning a classic, it's about participating in a legacy. When you drop the top, twist the key, and hear that little four-cylinder come to life, you're not just driving, you're time traveling. You're feeling what generations of enthusiasts felt when they first discovered the joy of a lightweight, open-air sports car. If you've ever wondered what the essence of British motoring feels like, it's right here. The sound, the smell, the mechanical honesty. All of it wrapped up in a car that was simple enough to be approachable and sophisticated enough to be rewarding. The auction for this particular MGB ends on Tuesday, October 21st, 2025, at 12 p.m. PDT. If I were in the market, I'd be watching it closely. Because owning one of these cars isn't just about collecting. It's about preserving a moment in automotive history. The 1980 MGB Limited Edition wasn't built to break records or win races. It was built to celebrate a legacy and to remind us why we fell in love with sports cars in the first place. And for me, that's exactly what it still does. Every time I see one, hear one, or drive one, I'm transported back to that first day in 1980, when a 13-year-old kid discovered what true driving passion feels like. That's a connection no auction result can quantify, and one that will never fade.